Hi everyone, welcome back. We are talking about Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men. We're still in chapter 1. We're about page 7 in the Penguin edition, the softcover book. We left off right here with this little scene change dialogue, scene change description, excuse me, and that little cinematic quality that Steinbeck puts in. And we're going to pick up where we left off with George and Lenny in the clearing, getting ready for... Okay, so here we have George and Lenny talking about what they're going to do for dinner tonight. And George makes the call to stay at the clearing, and Lenny asks him, well, why aren't we going on to the ranch and get some supper? They got supper at the ranch. Well, this tells you all about Lenny's motivation in the world. We know from reading pages 1 through 6 that he likes to touch soft things. Well, we see another motivating factor for Lenny, and it has to do with food. Okay, but notice what George's response is. He says, no reason at all for you. I like it here. You know, no reason at all for you. It's not about you tonight, Lenny. This is about me sitting here. We see that tomorrow we got work to do. There's going to be thrashing machines busting a gut, so they're going to be working hard. So tonight he wants to just lay right here and look up at the stars and be his own boss for once, and not have to, be working so hard that he can take a moment and, and imagine him having some freedom, okay, and not being trapped in the Great Depression. All right, so now George directs Lenny to go get some willow sticks. They can get a fire going so they can have beans, and we see that Lenny likes to have beans with ketchup, and but as George points out, no ketchup. All right, we have Lenny lumbering to his feet. We have nice use of alliteration here, and the use of the word lumbered again has actually nothing to do with wood, despite the fact that he's going into the brush to go find some firewood. And lumbered, we know, is that slow, heavy movement. We saw that about page 3 with the description, so you should call it back, that description of the bear, Lenny moving like a bear. Now notice here, we hear some splashing down river in the direction Lenny had taken, and George stops whistling and says to himself, poor bastard, and keeps going on. Because again, Steinbeck is showing us instead of telling us that George has realized something. Now we get a little bit of comedy here, but we kind of lose it when it's flat on the page instead of seeing it, as an actor. We would get a little bit of comedy here, because in the next minute, Lenny comes crashing through the brush, and all he has is one itty-bitty little twig in his hand. And it should be funny. We should laugh at Lenny's entrance. And George immediately sits up, and he says to him brusquely, "Give me that mouse!" And Lenny says, with an elaborate pantomime of innocence, an elaborate show, "What mouse, George? I ain't got no mouse." And again, here comes George playing the role of the parent. He knows that Lenny has gone across the river to where he had thrown it, or at least across the stream there, into the brush to go look for that mouse that was dead, that was in his pocket. And wouldn't you know it, George's instincts are right, because here we get Lenny reaching reluctantly into his pocket. Now notice though how Lenny's behaving. Again, he's acting like a child, and George has to threaten him. You can't lie to me. You ain't putting nothing over. And then he, threatens him. You're going to give me that mouse, or do I have to sock you? This is just like a parent, spanking a child. You're going to give me that, or you're going to get a spanking. And, Lenny gives up the mouse. And again, he says, I didn't steal it. He knows stealing is wrong, just as he knows killing is wrong. I found it lying right beside the road. Now this time, of course, he found it lying on the ground, but initially we know that that dead mouse probably wasn't on the ground. Now, look at this description. So George is commanding Lenny to give him the ball. Or not the ball, the mouse. But slowly, like a terrier who doesn't want to bring a ball to its master, Lenny approached, drew back, approached again. And George snaps his fingers sharply, and then Lenny gives up the mouse. So now we have a new dimension to this relationship between George and Lenny. It's not just parent-child. It's now kind of a master and his dog, you know, and his pet. And here we go again, Steinbeck describing Lenny as an animal. Now, really important to pay attention to these moments when he's describing him as an animal, because he's setting us up for things that will happen later on. And the whole point Steinbeck is making is that Lenny, he wants you, the reader, to think of Lenny as less than human. He is not on the same level as George and the readers and the other characters, that he wants you to see Lenny as less than human. And then you will see why when we get to the end of the book. Now again, notice though, here Lenny, he does know right from wrong. We keep seeing these examples, and they're small, you got to pay attention, but he does know right from wrong despite his diminished mental capacities. You know, he says, you know, I wasn't doing nothing bad with the George, like, you know, he's not doing anything wrong with it, but yet he still doesn't understand that you shouldn't have a dead mouse in your pocket. You know, like, he doesn't understand appropriateness, okay? Now, Lenny's reaction is just like a child. You know, he starts whimpering and crying, well, you know, I wanted my mouse. And then Lenny, you know, here George has to explain himself and saying, but Lenny, that mouse ain't fresh. You know, you broke it petting it. So even George knows that Lenny did not find that mouse, that dead mouse on the side of the road. He knows he had it live at one point, you know, and he's like, you get another mouse, it's fresh, I'll let you keep it. And, you know, and here we see another example of Lenny's memory or lack of. He says, I remember a lady who used to give them to me, every one she got, but that lady ain't here. Okay, well, what does that mean, that lady ain't here? You know, to Lenny, does he understand death? Yeah, I don't know. It's a little difficult to understand. You know, the mouse is dead. The mouse isn't alive anymore. Yeah, but yet he still keeps it. That lady isn't here anymore. She's not with us. Well, if you notice, George says who that lady is. It's your Aunt Clara. You know, where is Aunt Clara now? Why isn't Lenny with Aunt Clara? Because she seems to have been the original caretaker. You know, where are Lenny's parents, actually? You know, also understand, too, that George and Lenny are probably in their 30s. So, you know, when you look at the history of these characters, how does George know about Aunt Clara? You know, and how did the two of them meet up together? We don't know. We don't know because Steinbeck doesn't really tell us much. We do get clues to later on. Okay, he shows us quite a bit, though. All right, now look at this, though. He says, you know, Lenny's sad about not having the mouse. Not sad that the mouse is dead, just sad that he doesn't have it anymore. And he says, soon they bit my fingers, and I pinched their heads a little, and then they was dead because they was so little. He doesn't understand that the action of pinching the heads is probably what killed the mice. He just says, oh, they're so little. It's the mouse's fault that it's dead. It's not my fault. This is really interesting when you look at, you know, Lenny's level of intelligence. You look at their interactions, these two. It's a very complex relationship. And again, here we have that name dropping of the rabbits. Well, I wish we got the rabbits, George. I want the rabbits. You know, and we still don't understand the significance yet of the rabbits. All right, now we get another scene change here. Flame in the sunset lifted, another transition. And we're back to dinner. You're going to go get that wood that we need for the fire. Lenny this time is obedient, and he goes and gets more wood. Although that wood really wasn't all that far off when he just had to go behind a tree to go get it. All right, now we have this bit here. Lenny's being patient, waiting for his beans, but he says, well, I like them with ketchup. And then George explodes. It seems like George is the kind of guy that just holds everything in. You know, he just holds it in, and then finally snaps. And then we get this rant. And he goes on about how he can, what he can do if he didn't have Lenny. You know, he could live so easy. He could get a job and work and not have any trouble or any messes. We have foreshadowing here, you know, that he's not telling us, you know, why he doesn't have a job anymore or what trouble Lenny's been causing, but we get it's Lenny's fault. Whatever it is, it's Lenny's fault that they don't have jobs, okay? But it's also this notion of, oh, I could go waste my time. I could go to a pool hall. I could go to a bar. You know, I could just go play cards or go to a cat house. and enjoy my time. But no, he's got to take care of Lenny. And he says, you know, you can't keep a job and you lose me every job I get. Is it necessarily Lenny's fault? We don't know. I mean, could it be other people's reaction that they don't understand Lenny? We don't know yet, okay? And we get this little bit, we get another clue here. You know, and now George is mimicking Lenny. He took on the elaborate manner of little girls when they are mimicking one another. Just wanted to feel that girl's dress. Just wanted to pet it like it was a mouse. Well, how the hell she know you wanted to feel her dress? She jerks back and you hold on like it was a mouse. She yells and we got to hide in an irrigation ditch all day with guys looking for us. And we got to sneak out in the dark and get out of the country. All the time, something like that. All the time. I wish I could put you in a cage with about 1,000,000 mice and let you have fun. Well, if George weren't with Lenny, that's probably where he would be, in some cage. And we get an inkling about, you know, why they left the town of Weed. Is this story about being, you know, Lenny getting in trouble and touching a girl's red dress. Is he attacking the girl? No, but we can see that it was a misunderstanding, that people didn't understand that about Lenny. All right, now at the end of George's rant here, we have another scene change. It was quite dark now, but the fire lighted the trunks of the trees and the curving branches overhead. Okay, and then now we have Lenny trying to make up with George. And so here Lenny sits right close to him. He's trying to make up for it. You know, he apologized. I was only fooling George. I don't want no ketchup. I wouldn't eat it if it was here beside me. And, you know, George is like, no, no, no. I'd let you have some. And we have this kind of like apology bit going on here. It's not, they don't ever actually come out and say, I'm sorry. But it's close enough. Okay. And then now Lenny, we see Lenny actually manipulate George. And he says, George, you want I should go away and leave you alone? And George's like, where would you go? And he's, you know, he says, I'll go live off in the hills there someplace. I'd find a cave. Really? Okay. If you leave George, this is what you think of? You're going to go off and find a cave? Who or what lives in caves? That's right, animals. So here we have another example of Steinbeck showing Lenny as an animal. Because people don't go off and live in caves. Less than human. Okay. All right. So then now we have Lenny still saying, nope, you know, I would leave. You know, nobody want me. I'd go away and get away from everybody else. We wouldn't have any problems. And then we get almost an apology. I've been mean, ain't I? He realizes he's been harsh with Lenny. And, you know, and again, Lenny says, oh, I'll go off and find a cave. And he's like, no, 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 I'm fooling. I want you to stay with me. Really? He says those words, I want you to stay with me. So no matter how many times George seems to go on a rant and get yells at Lenny, we still have them like together. And there's got to be something that Lenny does for George. You know, why would these two guys stay together so much? If, you know, especially Lenny's such trouble, there's got to be a reason. Okay. All right. So now he says, well, first chance I get, I'll give you a puppy. You wouldn't kill it. I hope not. But, and then notice Lenny here. He says he avoided the bait. He had sensed his advantage. We're going back to that child and parent relationship. The kid gets, you know, overly yelled at by the parent, and now the parent's trying to make up for everything. Oh, don't cry, I'll give you a lollipop. You know, and here he's trying to make up for it, and Lenny knows it. He senses his advantage, and he keeps pushing. And then he makes George say it again. I want you to stay with me, Lenny. Okay? And we get another reference again to animals. Somebody'd shoot you for a coyote. A coyote if you was by yourself. Another reference to an animal. Might go back and want to try to count those all up. Okay? And then we find out, where's Aunt Clara been? Your Aunt Clara wouldn't like it. You running off by yourself, even if she is dead. So we know that's probably part of the reason why George is with Lenny, is because, well, Lenny doesn't seem to have anybody else in the world. And if you think about it, where's George's family? He doesn't seem to have anybody else in the world either. All right, we're going to finish this chapter in the next video. Third time's the charm.